Somehow, some way, Pacers preseason basketball starts this weekend. We'll preview it all, what to watch for, the important things to keep an eye on rotationally, the competition, and more with Rhett Bauer on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today we're diving in to the upcoming thing that is the Pacers preseason action. We've heard from the team a lot this week in the lead up to it. They've got one more practice Saturday, and their first game in Memphis on Sunday against the Grizzlies. Really good opponent stretch for the Pacers in the preseason in terms of learning stuff about the team and their stylistic goals for the season. We'll talk about that today as we dive in to Pacers preseason, everything you need to watch for in terms of rotations, players taking a jump, how the team looks different. And Rhett Bauer is going to join us to break it all down. Again, they play Sunday and next Tuesday. Let's get into everything you need to watch for in Pacers preseason with Rhett Bauer. How is this possible? I feel like we just got started and the Pacers play a preseason game in 2 days. We're talking 6 hours after the Mavs and Timberwolves played a game. The NBA is back, baby, and it's time to look ahead at the Pacers preseason. A lot of the dominant storylines from early camp will, of course, be prevalent in preseason games, but games will be a big decider on learning a lot more about this stuff, how the Pacers feel about it, at least early in the season, and projecting what the regular season could look like. Joining me to talk Pacers preseason, and he'll be back in a few weeks to preview the actual season. You've heard him here many times. Sport Ethos, Punt intended, covered the Pacers from many places before. It's Rhett Bauer. Rhett, can you believe it? Hoops are back, baby.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I had the game on, and I'm probably going to watch it again later just to see like actual basketball. It's pretty great. I'm very, very excited that NBA is back.
I admittedly did not catch very much of it because of when our practice schedule was for Pacers on Thursday, but I too am excited that hoops are back and we're rolling. We got stuff to talk about. Locked On Mavs and Locked On Wolves. Got to plug them while we go here. But this is the Pacers show, and the Pacers preseason somehow kicks off on Sunday. If you're listening on Friday, because that's when this comes out, they have an off day today, so we'll have no new information about what they're truly prepping until Saturday. So some other topics could come up tomorrow. But Grizzlies first with no Ja, which is interesting. Rockets 2 days later, then a big gap before they play the Hawks and Cavs at home. One big thing there, I wish Ja was playing because we would learn a lot about how the Pacers are going to defend the perimeter or how they're going to assign guys to defend the perimeter given the opponents they have, right? Two really talented guards on Atlanta and Murray and Trey, two really talented guards on the Cavs and Garland and Mitchell. John Morant and Desmond Bane are a fantastic combo. Jalen Green and Fred VanVleet are not like at the same level as the three teams you already said, but still two really good guards. And so I don't even know if everybody's going to play for all these teams, but in theory, like micro picture, really zooming in on their opponents, I think one thing I'll be really interested in learning about the Pacers in preseason is how do they assign their backcourt defensively and how does everybody look in those settings? Because we know what Bruce Brown can do, but Mathurin taking a step forward, how they're going to use Haliburton defensively is going to be something really important to figure out about this team in these games.
Yeah, no kidding. And I think the Atlanta matchup and the Houston matchup, maybe depending on who they end up starting, are going to be the ones that are actually going to test the defense for the Pacers in ways that it needs to be tested.
Yes.
I guess Cleveland too with Garland and Mitchell, which is something that you've talked about quite a bit. But yeah, not playing against Ja is not the actual, like, obviously ideal lineup for the Pacers to really be thrown into the fire. But at the same time, like, it's kind of nice to take that threat off and kind of ease into the elite backcourt type production to defend against. And I think Miles going against Steven Adams is going to be fascinating to see. Like, okay, Steven Adams is one of the best offensive rebounding players in the entire league. So are we actually going to go get the ball off of the rim, or is that just going to be lip service?
Brett Carlisle over here.
Yeah. I had to pause there for a second, leave a word out. But yeah, so I think it's going to be a pretty fascinating matchup, especially because I think Jaren Jackson is one of the like the power forwards, quote unquote, that Obi Toppin is actually going to be good to defend rather than like a smaller,
shiftier.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Guys that require you to change your speed a lot or go side to side, I think will be the guys that are tough for Toppin. And Jaren Jackson is an awesome player, but certainly not that kind of guy. Yeah, the Grizzlies will be a good test too for something that I think the story should be up by the time this is out. So I'll just say it now. Like Rick had that rebounding quote, and I followed up on rebounding today at practice because I get the Pacers stressing rebounding from the perspective of if you want to run a transition, you got to get the ball, right? Duh. But there is a point where if you send a lot of guys to get the rebound, that can be good. Getting possession is good, but then you're not able to run in transition because your whole team is, 90 feet from the rim to fight for the rebound. And so, you have to find the right balance of doing that. And there is some push and pull with how those stats are related. Now, you can be a really good rebounding team and a really good transition team, but you have to have the right personnel. Do the Pacers have the transition personnel? Yeah. Do they have the rebounding personnel? So Steven Adams will be, and Triple J and Steven Adams is a big front court, but we just saw Jaren Jackson. He's not a rebounder. But Steven Adams is such a good rebounder that we'll get a good test to see all that, and I'm looking forward to that. The Hawks are pretty boardy as well. Capella's a decent test for that. The Cavs start two bigs. I didn't even think about that aspect of it. But again, looking at the opponent specifically, we'll just kind of learn a lot about how the Pacers want to prioritize their identity versus the new stuff they want to be better at, and defensively in the front court too. I think that'll be telling.
Yeah, if Summer League Jabari Smith shows up, then that will be the test for Obi Toppin defensively against a shot-creating wing, but I don't think he'll be asked to do that in that starting lineup, but still kind of big, so not really as shifty. And then with Atlanta, you've got DeAndre Hunter and Sadiq Bey, I'm assuming, and so not really shot-creating, but smaller, more of a wingy forward rather than a power forwardy forward like Jaren Jackson and Evan Mobley. But yeah, I think these games are just going to be exciting. I feel like there's so much stuff to watch for that I don't really care who the opponent is. There's going to be something to get out of it.
Yeah, like personally, I'm glad matchup wise, just from a learning perspective, there's no I don't even know who you'd consider the worst backcourt in the NBA right now. Probably Toronto comes to mind right away. It's
unless
not
they start Scotty Barnes at PG, and then we got a massive size difference.
Yeah, there. It's probably Schroeder and Gary Trent. You wouldn't learn a ton about how the Pacers are lining up defensively against you like that, and they're not going against the Wizards who don't even have Gafford, so their front court lines are not going to test your rebounding.
Portland,
they're not playing the best competition ever in the preseason, but they're playing teams that specifically will push them in ways that they're trying to improve, and I think that, beyond the more general stuff that we've been talking about since training camp started, will be good for the Pacers. But this is always my favorite thing from preseason. There's two favorite things I have from preseason. One is the rotation. I like to we can guess. We have pretty good ideas from what's going on in practice, although a Nembhard neck injury, a McConnell ankle injury makes it a little hard to totally figure out what they're thinking, but the starters seem like what was expected. So figuring out what the bench, at least right now, is projected to be, or what the Pacers are thinking, and how that could adjust as the preseason progresses is, of course, telling, because they play everybody, or at least almost everybody in these games. So we'll learn a lot about the hierarchy of the Pacers in these games specifically. We don't have to rehash every conversation about the rotation, but actually figuring out what they're thinking and what it is telling. That's how we saw that Aaron Nesmith was going to play last year, and where they wanted Chris Duarte versus Mathurin and all this stuff. And again, I think everybody gets a pretty good sense here, but actually seeing it will be telling.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the defensive matchups alongside that is what's going to be the most fascinating to try and figure out. Okay, you say you want to play this way and you're going to have these people out on the floor. How does that mesh together? What can you do in that regard to be the most effective while also trying to do the things that you've talked about doing? And so I feel like there's going to be so much information, which sounds dumb to try and take so much away from preseason because it's preseason. It's like drawing conclusions from summer league, but it's just it's not
that vague.
It's not. No, but I tell you what, if Jabari Smith goes off, that's all we need to know, those games. But no, the rotation is going to be fascinating. How deep do they go in these preseason games? How serious do they take the idea of getting as many people out there, or are they treating it like a very meaningful game and then you only have an 8-9 man rotation, despite the team actually being so deep with guys who probably should see some minutes?
Hey, everybody, short little break here so I can talk to you about FanDuel. NFL action is rolling. Games last night, games this Sunday. You can get into it all with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when they place a $5 bet on FanDuel. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use. They have a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, your favorites. They've got it all at FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. Some teams football it where it's like the first game, all 18 guys get some time, and then it's like 15 and then 12 and then your normal thing. And some teams reverse football it where it's like, let's get our key stuff figured out quickly and then rest guys to start the season. I don't think either of them are better or worse than the other. These games aren't particularly important as long as no one gets hurt. So in terms of learning how the Pacers have their hierarchy set, at least right now, I would personally like it to be 18 first down to the more normalized rotation, because you can see the battles progress as the preseason goes on, but I'm not sure either strategy actually works there. And these competition things will be noteworthy too. Like, let's say, I'm just making this up, but let's say the backup center is Daniel Tice in the first game and the third big is Jalen Smith, and then Jalen Smith has an awesome first preseason game, right? Does that influence how they sort of bend lineups in the second game? How rigid are they going to be with the decisions they made? And part of handling competition could be experimenting with a lot of guys who are fighting for specific roles with certain combinations. So that might actually make it harder to determine if the rotation is real. But at the same time, if one guy shines in those settings, it could be easier, at least from our seat, to go, okay, this guy has the advantage, at least in our eyes, in those competitions. So not only will you get rotation information, but like fit info, who's got a leg up, all that kind of stuff will be more clear when there's actual games with actual refs and clocks.
Exactly. And I think I agree. I would start with playing just about every player you expect to be in the rotation for this year, just to get as much information as possible, especially like you said, with those bigs. Like I think you have to give Isaiah Jackson and Jalen Smith the most opportunity possible, but also you have to know, okay, how good are we actually with Daniel Tice as the backup center? Because if they want to be good, that's going to matter. And if Isaiah Jackson and Jalen Smith don't take that over and Daniel Tice is just better, okay, that opens up probably some minutes at the 4 as well, because you just don't even have to mess with Jalen Smith and Isaiah Jackson playing that much. And then you have some cascading effects of your rotation there as well. So I hope that that's not the case, that we don't just pivot right to Daniel Tice after 2 preseason games and leave those 2 young bigs on the bench. But I like the idea of, okay, you had training camp, all that stuff. These are actual preseason basketball games against other NBA teams. How do you do in various roles? And then sort of trim the rotation from there heading into the regular season.
There could just be this element where it's like Daniel Tice sets his first, Euro guy, awesome screen for Andrew Nembhard. And Nembhard's like, wow, I have the whole paint in front of me. Like where you go, oh, they could click really well. Or it could be the opposite, where it's like Tice is in there with McConnell and they're trying to play fast and it's just clunky. And of course, the Pacers and anybody could shrug, no, it's preseason, we're figuring it out. Like the Mavs looked awful today in the first half. I think the first time I checked the score of that game, it was 33-9 or 29. Like it was crazy.
37-19 after the first quarter. So it was like, yikes.
But if you're the Mavs, and this is totally fine to do, they're overseas and jet lagged and have a bunch of new players. Like they can just shrug, it's preseason, whatever. Like Luke looks good, that's what matters. And they're right. So there is elements of both, where you have to really get into the details to see how this is all going to look out. I've been talking a lot, Rhett. What are you looking forward to seeing in the preseason?
So I think the first thing that I'm looking for, and probably the most important thing for me this season, is what does Benedict Mathurin look like on defense?
Yep.
Because I don't know how much you can teach passing vision, right? Like, I don't know how much you can teach that. Probably some, especially from the baseline that Mathurin set last year. There's room for improvement. Absolutely. Shooting, I believe he is a good shooter. I believe that will come through. The defense is going to be the biggest swing skill, because if he is playing next to Tyrese Halliburton and he can defend at the level that he talks like he wants to, that is franchise altering for where this team is currently and where they are going to be moving forward, especially because, like Marcus Smart, Desmond Bane, those are pretty solid guards, different kind of guards, because then you move on to Houston, Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, very, very different than like Jalen Green and Desmond Bane are very, very different players that play about the same position. And so those are two very different looks. And then you move on, and then you got Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, very different looks. And then Darius
Yeah.
Garland. Like, there are a variety of players that are going to test Benedict Mathurin in different ways. And I am very curious to see what that looks like, and if it's actually possible for the team to hide Tyrese Halliburton in the way that it seems like they probably want to, with Bruce Brown and Benedict Mathurin being the primary guard defenders. So I think that is the most exciting thing to look for me. And it could be, I don't want to say disappointing, but it would probably change some things early in the season if he cannot step it up on that end.
Yeah, I don't even necessarily know that it matters if he's like shining star on defense level player, but like, to me, like, I'll never forget this game. I even clipped like 6 possessions from it and tweeted about it, and people laughed because it was a preseason game. But like the first preseason game last year, Pacers were in Charlotte, and Aaron Nesmith had several plays where he dribbled like 2 or 3 times and made a play that was a positive play, and I was like, huh? Like, he never did that with Watson, and like that wasn't a thing he did all the time last season, but it was just a sign that like he's getting better. The game's clicking for him. He's going to be a positive player for this team. And so he isn't a dribbler. Like, he's not a guy that you're going to expect to play make. But if like there's just a little micro improvement on offense was a key sign. So for Mathurin, it'd even be like that, where it's just like, oh my God, he's shut down whatever guard for these possessions. Or, wow, look, he read that passing lane perfectly. Like, not even the whole game, but just like little things that you go, okay, something you did this offseason is clicking. Or like, oh, Bruce Brown's presence is awesome for you, even just to learn from, or just like, yes, this is looking a lot better. Like, even if he has lapses, if that happens like that, like it did with Nesmith, it's like, this is great. You can see what the vision is and how he can get better on that end, because he says it all the time. Like, and just the way he acts, like, I believe him. Maybe I'm a sucker, but he says, I want to be the best two-way player in the league. Okay, well, you got to defend better to be that guy. We could talk about his passing in a second, because I have a question about one player that's not Ben Mathurin. But I agree, and I just think seeing some sort of flashes of good footwork, good reading of the game would go a long way in going, okay, this is something they can rely on this year.
Yeah, the awareness, the off-ball awareness, I think, is probably going to be one of my bigger things, because I think he has the physical tools to defend on the ball, and I think we kind of saw that.
We got the return of shirtless Mathurin at practice. That dude's physical tools are bananas.
Yeah, I'm getting self-conscious. We got to see a little bit of that on ball, because he is just an athlete and strong and obviously physical on offense. So if you can bring that on the defensive end on the ball, that's going to be useful as an on-ball stopper, quote unquote, for the Pacers. But if he is not losing his man on defense, and he's communicating well and reacting to other people communicating well, that is a game changer. Even if it's not all the time, like you said, it is still going to matter quite a bit, because that progress is going to be very, very encouraging, especially with how much this Pacers team wants to get better on defense and really needs to get better on defense.
Do you remember anything about James Harden entering the NBA?
A little bit, not crazy.
I don't. To be totally clear, I don't. I won't say my age because people listening will laugh, but I was younger. He averaged 1.8 assists as a rookie per game and 2.1 assists in his second season. And his advanced numbers, his assist percentage was 12.3, 12.8 his first 2 years. Now, let me get ahead. I am not comparing Ben Mathurin and James Harden. I am saying he is like the poster of passing and vision improvement. Now, some of that came because he was just like so unbelievably good handling the ball that it took a million people to defend him. So they were like the easiest passes of all time. But also his assist percentage was almost double what Mathurin's was. The per game numbers aren't perfectly telling. But I don't know how good of a passer he was projected to be when he came to the NBA, because he is one guy that I think of that I'm like, yeah, he got way. I do remember from his early OKC days, because they made the finals, like not thinking of him as a passer, and then he became one of the best in the NBA. So like, it is possible, but I agree with you that the general feel for vision is a lot harder to just like absorb all of a sudden, right? It takes you becoming like James Harden, an amazing breakdown level player. We don't need to get too deep into the Benedict Mathurin weeds, but I wanted to bring that up because I remembered that from when I was doing my free throw rate research projects. One more break here, guys, so I can talk to you about Birddogs, the company making my favorite pairs of shorts and pants. I have 5 pairs of their shorts and a pair of their pants. Like I've always been saying, they're fantastic. I've worn them to so many events now. Their stretch khaki shorts are designed to fit slimmer through your thigh, and give you a more sculpted look in your legs. And their shorts are the exact same thing as Lululemon, but they fit a lot better. The way they fit better than regular shorts that are made of stiff restricting cotton. Instead, Birddogs have their own cloud knit fabric. It looks just like khaki, but it stretches, so it fits better. It looks slimmer, and you can still move just as well. They have anti-stink sweat wicking fabric, so you're cool and dry all day long. I've worn them golfing. I've worn them walking around on vacations. I've worn them at night. I've worn them to the pool. You've got to try them yourself. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA, or when you check out, enter the promo code LockedOnNBA, and you'll get a free Birddogs water bottle with your order. I have a hat and a tumbler, and I will be getting a water bottle as well. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA for a free water bottle at checkout. You won't want to take your Birddogs off. I can promise you that. Something else, and I already brought this up with Neesmith, that I enjoy or take stock of from preseason is just like, who looks better from last year? You know, Neesmith was a standout one, but there are also the signs of guys who looked worse, like Duarte did not have a good preseason last year. But, you know, who looks better, who looks ready for more, or who, you know, especially because there's competition, is just a guy that's like, oh, wow. This guy, I think the candidates for me in this department would be Andrew Nembhard, number one, right? Oh, wow, his form looks a little different, like, because he's working on dudes with Jenny Busick. I don't even know if his form's going to look different, to be clear. Like, oh, his form looks different, or like he's getting all the way to the rim, or his passing looks crisper. He looks a little quicker. You know, he's a candidate to me of a guy that you could look at and go, wow, he obviously looks better. Any of the young bigs could have that happen. You know, they were really confident in their abilities on media day. There's a lot of guys that could be candidates for this, but that's something else that's important, is just like, if you're the Pacers and you're trying to be better, right? It's weird to say this because everybody's talking playoffs, but they still have this long-term approach going on, right? Any young guy who, even from day one, looks better or does something you haven't seen before, that's something noteworthy you need to register if you're the Pacers.
Yeah, and something you talked about on today/yesterday's episode is Obi Toppin's fit with Miles Turner. Like, is he actually able to do the things as a bigger minute power forward that he was able to do in New York when he was a starter? Because I think that's going to be very informative. And then Jarris Walker's shot is another one that I'm kind of like, okay, your elbow was hurt. Sure, you got surgery on it? Absolutely. But if that doesn't turn out to be as impactful as we maybe thought, then that's going to change how he is used probably early in the season, and change how much opportunity he could probably have and how versatile the lineups can be. So yeah, there's a lot of things that I think it's exciting to look for, because it's like, there's so many little things that all of these guys can improve on because they're young, but also because they seem to be aware that they need to work on them. And so I like Nembhard being able to translate some of that summer league ball handling and shot creation and offensive orchestrating is going to be awesome if he can pull that off, because then he's just that definitely changes some things as far as the rotation goes, in my opinion.
I'm really looking forward to watching Nembhard in these games. I don't know what his stash is going to be Sunday after his neck, back, whatever thing from practice on Thursday. It's 3 days away as we're talking, 2 days away as you're listening at the earliest. But yeah, I think he's the guy that has the most chance to surprise. Mathurin's defense maybe is the best chance, but in terms of growth from young players, I think those are the standouts, even though there's a lot of stuff that could be. Like, the young bigs could very easily come in and just look way more comfortable or way more refined, or like Jalen Smith goes 3 for 6 from deep. We're like, it's back. The shot is back. You know, there's a lot of ways that could go, but especially because those two guys are just going to play the most of young guys who are going to get big minutes. That's a good one. And I like the inclusion of Walker because I want to talk about the rookies. You can always learn a lot. Like last year, Mathurin's surge to start the season did start in preseason. It wasn't at the level that it was like right at the beginning of his NBA time, but there were signs that like, oh wow, this kid's pretty dang good. No one knows how to guard him when he gets going to the basket. I don't know if we'll see that from Walker or Shepherd, but especially I actually will be the most interested in Walker's immediate defensive impact. Like, can he come in day one and be their best defensive four on the team? Not that I don't think he will be one day. I certainly think he will be one day. In fact, not too far in the future, but rookies kind of suck on defense sometimes with absolutely no fault to them. It's just how it goes. The NBA game is a lot different. Can he look like the defensive playmaker he was in Summer League? Can he keep blowing up plays? Is he that active when it's NBA competition? And assuming he comes off the bench, I don't know that, but assuming he does, if he goes against PJ, or they don't play the Hornets, I'm stupid. They played the Hornets last year, so I just almost said PJ Washington. But like, if he's on Bogdanovich for a little bit, can he keep up with somebody like that? You know, there's a George Niang. How does he do against a shooter? Like, there'll be a lot of interesting matchups thrown about him, but seeing how he does, especially defensively for me, will be telling in these games.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know why I just kind of penciled in Jarris as being like a fairly decent defender right off the bat, because that's definitely not what the case with rookies. But I think as far as expectations go as an NBA player, I think Jarris's defense is going to be solid pretty much no matter what. The degree to which it's solid or better right off the bat is going to be fascinating, because if Mathurin can make strides and then Jarris comes in and is immediately like a fairly solid power forward defender in the NBA, like that's going to be very exciting. But I think the offense for Jarris is going to determine what lineups the Pacers can get to, and whether it's like, oh, Jarris, you need to play almost exclusively as a 5 if you're not playing next to Miles Turner.
How many rookies in the last, I don't know, 3 classes were like obviously plus defenders? Like there were some decent, like Trey Murphy was okay in his
Evan
first
Mobley,
year.
Herb Jones.
Mobley was a positive, I would say. Herb Jones was a good one. I forgot about him. Last year, I think the only one was Walker Kessler, right? Who was just like, oh, yeah. This dude's obviously a positive on defense right away. 2020, is there
Duarte?
Is there anybody?
Would you consider Duarte a positive defender as a rookie?
Oh, he was all right. But he was, yeah, I would consider him more neutral, honestly.
Completely fair. I just mean like for the bar.
And that's at
rookies.
best, too.
Right.
2020 is nobody. This is a crappy defensive class. Neesmith didn't play enough that year. So in the last 3 classes, like you can count on one hand, like the obvious positive defenders. And so it's possible. Yeah. Like Wembanyama probably will be. I don't know that, but it's rare, right? So this is not a shot at Jarris. I think he will be a good defender pretty quickly in the NBA. The built like a linebacker thing Chad Buchanan said is perfect, but not right away. Nobody is. Even guys who end up being good defenders are not right away. Like Patrick Williams, I think is a good defender now. He was not a good defender as a rookie. Isaac Okoro was okay as a rookie. He's a good defender now, but it's just hard. It's a way different game. You have to learn a lot.
Yeah, Jaden McDaniels was good.
Was he 3? He's seriously that recent of a draft pick? That is crazy.
Yep. Seems like he's been around forever, but nope. He's Anthony Edwards class.
Has he been extended yet? Can he get his 150? He saw Devin Vassell's number and was like, heck yeah, baby.
He should have already been. I would have extended Jaden McDaniels for $30 million 2 years ago, but that's just.
I think he gets more than Vassell. I don't. Wow, the Timberwolves situation money wise is crazy, but
that's what Locked On Timberwolves. Go check it out.
Yeah.
But no, I think the bar is pretty low for rookie defenders, but the threshold of being a good NBA defender as a rookie is very high, if that makes sense. Like the expectations are not that you're going to come in and be a good defender, but also like you can't. There have been guys that do it, and I think Jarris is one of those guys that he might end up being a more disruptive defender than like a good defender as a rookie. And I think I've said the same thing about the Thompson twins. Is like they might not be like stoppers, but they're going to be chaos all the time, I feel like. And I think Jarris could end up in the same situation because it just is going to depend on who he plays with a lot, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, how much do you think Shepherd plays? That's one thing that I'm looking for.
He plays every game.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
Like there's no reason not to. And he's probably the last guy that I'm like, I want you to play with rotation players every game just to see.
Yes.
Like if you're the Pacers, like him and Jordan Nwora, I don't think either of them are going to be in the rotation on opening night for the Pacers. No. But they're both young or good or interesting enough. You have to see like, oh wow, Nwora looks awesome, and all, maybe. Or like, oh, Shepherd's shooting looks good, and he knows how to get to his spots. Like, even if they're not going to play in the first game, like you want to know that. So yeah, I think Shepherd will play every game. I would play him every game.
Absolutely. I agree completely, especially with the lack of volume 3-point shooters on this team outside of Buddy Hield.
Yes.
It would be pretty nice to know whether or not Shepherd can do that at the NBA level against NBA players, and how that looks next to a lot of these other guys that are considered core players. Like you took him in the first round. You have to find some way to play him, even though the rotation is obviously very, very full at that position.
Especially if like the other movement shooter was in trade rumors or something like that. But
if that happened,
if that was the case, yeah, that is a good point. And that's just kind of my philosophy with preseason in general. It's more fact finding than it is tune-ups. Like, especially the first half, I would take pretty serious rotationally, but just getting guys out there. Yeah, I think I'd play him every game. I mean, I think he's probably for lack of a better term, Mendoza line for that. Like, I wouldn't be dying to get the 2A guys every game.
No.
I maybe wouldn't care in the last game about getting all my bigs in there. We'll see. But yes, I think he should play every game. And same kind of deal with his is the opposite of Jarris, where Jarris, I want to see if he can defend right away. Shepard, like you said, shooting right away, because I don't know what else he can grow as a player, obviously, but I don't know what else is obvious he'll be decent at the NBA. So how good is he at that right away? And there are rookies who have been good shooters in year one, several of them. To be Duarte was one. He was a pretty solid shooter as a first-year player. So being that right away is encouraging, even though it doesn't necessarily mean anything long-term. It's still valuable to know.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's really all, that's all that I'm looking for really any of these guys. It's like, okay, what is one thing that you are either good at or have improved at? Like, I don't need all of the things. I don't need Mathurin to be an awesome shooter, awesome passer, awesome defender in preseason. Like that, I will take progress in some capacity or just establishing an NBA skill in some capacity outside of probably like Obi Toppin. Like, I'm looking for him to do a couple more things than just like one, than just come in and be awesome in transition. Like I kind of want to see more than that from him. But it's preseason. So if not, then that's okay. I'm sure it's going to be nice to just have a power forward, like an actual big body forward, which is something we've been allergic to for about 4 years.
O'Shea Brissett has registered your comment.
You do not have to talk to me about O'Shea Brissett. You and I have been start O'Shea for far too long.
Also, shout out to O'Shea Brissett, who's about to get a ton of minutes. that team needs him. After some moves they've made, he might be a 20-minute a night guy for the Celtics, given how their time has gone. So good for him. He's in quite the situation. The only two other things I have typed down to mention today. You just got into one of them. You've done a good job segueing unintentionally today. I just typed new guys, and that's not the rookies. I mean Bruce and Obi.
Yes.
How did they fit more specifically? Because especially with Bruce Brown, like, he's played in so many schemes, and he's played on good and bad teams, and he's still found a way to be good and have an impact and help on both ends in whatever way he can. I'm not concerned about him being a good player for the Pacers, but how he fits, and then topping a little bit of both. What is he doing well? How does starting help him in big minutes? Does he look awesome? How much is he spacing versus around the rim? And what does that mean for Miles Turner? Just the new guys. What are they doing? Especially because they'll be together. So what does that mean for the starting five? Are we going to talk about every player but Halliburton? That's going to be pretty fun.
I would also throw Daniel Tice into that new guy mix, because he's new to this situation where they actually might want him to play.
That is true.
Tyrese Halliburton, good at basketball.
I couldn't believe this because I just wrote a Tice story. He played more minutes in the playoffs for the Celtics than he did for the Pacers last season.
That does not surprise me at all.
Almost twice as much, actually. I know.
That is crazy.
And it all makes sense. I get why. It's just like, wow, 109 minutes is nothing. That is so small. So the new guys, we've kind of covered a lot of that stuff. And the other thing, this one I probably will leave to Caitlin. I just typed scheme. They're going to play defense differently, they've said. Miles Turner described that it's not a dramatic change. If you want more on their defensive changes, yesterday's show, whole first segment was about everything that was said and all the new pieces. It was fun. Like, every player and coach we talked to this week about the Pacers defense all gave us like a little bit more. So we can get a lot of the puzzle in total, but no one person gave us that much. So it sounds like it'll be different, but not dramatically different. I am not... I'll probably notice some things, but I won't be able to be like, they changed these things and this, and it all connects in this way, and that's good or bad. Caitlin will be all over that, I'm sure. She already did it from Summer League, but how noticeable is it? Does it actually look better? Does it look the same? Like, their personnel suggests there's still definitely a bottom 12 defense in the league. So can they scheme their way above that? I don't think they'll be able to, but how much better does it look? Because last year's team was atrocious on defense.
And then not to circle it back to a rotation talk, but like the coaching staff, if they're seeing players be able to nail that scheme, like how much does that influence the minutes? Is like, hey, Aaron Nesmith, you are killing it on defense. You need to play more. Yep. Hey, Benedict Mathurin, you are not. You should play, but Buddy Hield, you might not be on the team. And so there's those things. But I do think that it'll be pretty easy to tell if it's better or worse, but I don't know if I will have a great baseline for like, oh, this changed from last year. That's going to definitely be Caitlin's wheelhouse. But
the reason I think I'll be able to tell a little bit is what Neesmith said, where he said the shots they're trying to force is different, right? So I think that you'll be able to tell where they're shading guys or who they're funneling them to. I mean, obviously that'd be Miles, but like how, but like how they're doing it.
That would be a drastic shift if they decided not to funnel shots to
Let's
Miles.
funnel guys to Obi, baby.
Halliburton rim protector. Let's go.
Yeah, Halliburton rim protector. Because they're getting away, not all the time, but Bruce Brown talked about less low man stuff, right? So what does that mean? It sounds like that's shading to the baseline. To me, that is a guess. We'll see what that actually looks like. That I think I'll be able to notice, but some other intricacy stuff, I'm just like, oh, I didn't like. I'd have to watch the game 6 times to catch some of that stuff. But I think we'll see in these games how different it looks. Really looking forward to this. I can't believe Sunday the Pacers play a game, right? I can't believe it.
It is. It seems like it's been like way too long. I don't know why it seems like this offseason has just dragged. Probably because the Pacers.
I have a real reason actually. If you want my theories,
because it's actually long because of COVID last couple of years.
Yes. Last summer was like the first normal one, and I think people kind of breathed through it. But now it's like, oh yeah, those crazy fast 2-month summers are not a thing.
What do you mean it's not normal to have NBA basketball for 11 months out of the year? I'm upset.
They played in August 2020, and then that season ended in July, and then they immediately had the draft and free agency, and then started in October. There was basically 1 month for 2 years where there was nothing. Like that's it.
I'm sure it sucked for the players, but like I loved it. That was pretty awesome. Like the context of it also sucked, but
that's true. My small comparison, I don't know if you ever felt this way, like back when you were in school, right? You'd have a 4-day week and then you'd have a normal week. And the first normal week felt like normal speed of life. And then the second 5-day week was like, this is the longest 5 days in human history.
I still feel that about work. It's not just about
school. That's what this offseason was. It was the second one of normal time.
That's a very good comparison, but I don't like that you don't think I do that with work still. So
yes,
it's the same.
That's true. I guess that applies to the workforce a little bit, but people like their jobs more than they like school, right? I think.
Yeah. That's a whole conversation. I don't really want to get into. I don't know. I don't want
philosophy, baby. That's what we're here for now. Yep. Looking forward to it. Monday's show will, of course, be all about Pacers Grizzlies. What we learned, what we didn't, who looked good, who didn't. There'll be a lot to get to. They play the Cavs on Tuesday too, so immediate turnaround. We'll learn a lot. And then I don't know if the Pacers are coming back in between games, but we'll get a chance to talk to them again Saturday and then presumably Wednesday. We'll see. Looking forward to all that. You'll get it all here on Locked On Pacers. Rhett, thank you for the time. You'll be back in less than 3 weeks. I'm repeating guests, everybody. Don't get mad at me. But Rhett and Derek have reached a tier of repeating here at Locked On Pacers. Where can people find you? Your work covering the NBA at large, but mainly and more often the Pacers.
Yep. Find me on Twitter at Rhett_Bauer. I'm working on something for the Pacers right now. Working on a lot of other fantasy stuff, which is exciting because NBA means fantasy stuff, which is fun. So if you are interested in any of that, give me a follow and I would love to interact with you.
My tanking fantasy football team was wheeling and dealing yesterday. That is my fantasy knowledge. We're looking good. We're finally on the ascent. CeeDee Lamb is going to lead us out of mediocrity, baby. We're coming. If any of them are listening, please make fun of me for stupid trades. Like I said, back Monday talking Pacers basketball games. Can't believe it. Thank y'all for listening, everybody. We'll see you soon.